Over this weekend at a Hanukkah celebration, there was yet another anti-Semitic attack in New York. This is a man who entered an Orthodox rabbi's home in Monsey, New York, and stabbed and wounded 5 people, then fled in a vehicle. The victims of the attack in Monsey, which is about 35 miles from New York City, were all Hasidic Jews. The town has a large Hasidic Jewish population. Now, they did eventually track down a person they believe was them, and the evidence seems pretty strong. Authorities arrested the suspect after the rampage in a suburb north of New York City. They found him with blood on his clothes and 2 weapons, including a machete. A cell phone recovered from his car revealed recent searches for phrases like German Jewish temples near me and why did Hitler hate the Jews, documents state.
Jesus.
Although representatives for the suspect say that this was a simple case of mental illness and had nothing to do with anti-Semitic thoughts or hate crime or anything like that.
And by the way, it's possible that it's both.
Yeah, it's both. It makes sense. I would say that if you're violently anti-Semitic, you are mentally ill. Now, this is, just bear in mind, in just the last 3 weeks inside of just New York, this is the 13th anti-Semitic incident.
No, that's amazing. I mean, there's something deeply, deeply wrong here. So this attack was Saturday night. Mayor de Blasio had called for extra patrols in Brooklyn to protect Hasidic Jews there on Friday night, the night before this particularly vicious attack. Because there's been so many attacks back to back to back. And by the way, the machete, one of the witnesses said that the guy had pulled a knife the size of a broomstick. So that seems to match as well. And remember, in Jersey City, there was another attack that happened very recently. It's actually happened this month. 3 people, 2 of them who were Orthodox Jews, were killed at the market. That person also did it because of anti-Semitic beliefs, according to officials involved. Last month, an Orthodox Jewish man was stabbed just steps away from a local synagogue. They're not positive that one was connected to anti-Semitism, but obviously the pattern doesn't look good. And it goes, unfortunately, on and on and on in terms of these recent spate of attacks against Jewish Americans, particularly in the New York, New Jersey area. So look, I'm a little bit more perplexed by this than I am by others. Now, we've tracked this, I would argue, as well as any show in America, all going all the way back to when Trump started to rise in 2015, and now the, I guess, infamous David Duke interview where I brought him on because Trump was talking about him. And I thought he was gonna rant about Latinos and Muslims and all the things that Trump was ranting about. He didn't, he spent 90% of the interview ranting against Jews. And and I've told you this in the past, whether it's Alex Jones, David Duke, or the alt-right, the one thing that seems to drive them the most is anti-Semitism, because they think when you go down the rabbit hole of their insane conspiracy theories and bigoted views, at the end, it always comes back to the same theory: the Jews control the world. Yep. Okay, so that I understand better than almost anyone, having covered it exhaustively. And then we warned people, oh my God, watch out, anti-Semitism's coming, and then Charlottesville, and then the synagogue attacks in Pittsburgh and other places, and now this. So why am I perplexed? We've been covering this ad nauseum, and it is sickening what's happening. Well, this guy was African American, so it didn't look particularly right wing. I could be wrong about that. It's new and it's just kind of happened, and we're trying to figure out the details. But it doesn't look like they're all right wingers in the New York, New Jersey attacks yet. Again, we don't have anywhere near enough details. So what's going on now? Jesus, and I'm not positive, John.
There's a lot of anti-Semitism, and not all of it is directly linked to the right wing. I mean, it goes back thousands of years, obviously.
Of course.
So there's a ton.
But remember, the thing that goes back thousands of years, it is the right wing hatred of, and I don't mean that in like, oh, I knew who the political associations of the folks in Poland were when they were doing the pogroms. No, I mean, look, the most famous example, obviously, is the Nazis. The Nazis are considered the most right-wing probably we've ever had in any political movement in the history of the world. And so when you have extreme right-wingers, they do bigotry, they do racism, they do anti-Semitism, and they do it all across the world. So in a sense, we understand that. So that's a horrible phenomenon we've been dealing with and fighting with for a long time. Is it possible to have anti-Semitism on the left? Of course it's possible, right? Or in the center, or in things that are not at all related to the political spectrum. All of that is enormously possible.
Yeah.
It's just this rise is particularly quixotic. It's a bad word for it. It's weird. Yeah. What the hell is going on?
Well, look, and because we've been covering this so much, for us, one of the shocking things is how accepted anti-Semitism is within the Republican Party. That you can have Steve King, it's totally fine. We'll take him off his committees, but he's totally still a congressman. Everything can vote, and you have all these people who are accepted into the party. But the thing is, once they're in there, that stuff just becomes normalized. The retweets and the quotes and the speeches and all of that just goes out there and gets to everyone. And the thing about normalization is that it sort of pulls the center of gravity on this thing in a dangerous direction. So I personally believe that Republican elected politicians are moving farther and farther away from supporting democracy. But if they're successful, it's not just going to be getting their own voters to question whether democracy is the way that a government should be organized. It's also causing other people to question it. These things that seem so weird initially become normalized.
Yeah, so guys, by the way, don't get me wrong. There's no indication that any of these attacks are from the left wing or the center or any of that. So it's just that it's so intense in a particular area in a particular time that I wonder if there's something layered on top of the normal bigotry, anti-Semitism, and horrific anti-Semitic attacks and violent attacks. Something layered where is someone driving it in this particular instance, in instigating? Otherwise, why that particular line of attack is so specifically in such in a narrow area, relatively speaking? So there's just something extra weird about these attacks, and I feel like we haven't really solved it yet.
Yeah, and we don't know much about the individual, or certainly the other individuals as well. But let me read a little bit more, and we'll see what we know about this individual and try to figure something out based on that. Now, as I said, they've caught the suspect. The suspect is pleading not guilty. This was on Sunday to 5 charges of attempted murder and 1 count of burglary. His bail was set at $5 million. Also faces 5 counts of obstructing the free exercise of religious beliefs by attempting to kill with a dangerous weapon and causing injuries. So in terms of trying to find out what this person might believe, journals were discovered in the home, including anti-Semitic sentiments. An FBI officer writes in a federal complaint, some writings refer to Adolf Hitler and Nazi culture alongside drawings of a swastika and Star of David. Others question, quote, why people mourned for anti-Semitism when there is Semitic genocide.
It's always ravings of lunatics' mind. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. And of course, it's not so surprising that an incredibly strange and hateful guy, anti-Semitic and reading Nazi stuff, says nonsensical stuff.
Yeah, and those searches on their browser, searches related to Nazis, Jewish individuals, and synagogues dates back to about November 9th. Yeah. Although it's possible it was cleared before then, so who knows?
Yeah, John, to your point, look, this is what's so troubling about a culture of hate, because once it starts, it unravels, and we've opened up a Pandora's box of hate in this country. And when I say we, I mean Donald Trump, and I mean the right wing. I do, and that is where it springs from. Now it's springing to areas that you couldn't predict, and maybe I'm too. The guy's African American, so that's why I keep pausing. Like, why is he a right winger Nazi? I haven't heard of too many African American Nazis. I'm keeping it real, right? It's not a common occurrence. Is there some anti-Semitism in the African American community? Of course, there is in every community, right? So I get that phenomenon, and so anyway, bottom line is, I hope that this is not metastasizing and now getting to a tipping point. That's what I'm really, really worried about. Yeah. Where now people are attacking Jewish Americans left and right. Not just, but remember, it happened in Charlottesville, it happened here, it happened in Pittsburgh, it happened in Arizona. So now it's all over the country. And outside of the country as well, of course. Yeah, of course. And again, guys, it's been around forever and ever. It's one of the oldest forms of bigotry there is on the planet in human history. But the fact that it has risen so much recently is deeply, deeply problematic. So why don't we go now to 2 reactions to this? One positive, one I would say less than positive. But the first coming from the governor.
This is intolerance meets ignorance meets illegality. This is an intolerant time in this country. It is intolerant, it is ignorant, but it is also illegal. And at the end of the day, it's not just about words, it's about action. And we have seen enough in New York. This is violence spurred by hate. It is mass violence, and I consider this an act of domestic terrorism. Let's call it what it is. These people are domestic terrorists. And the law should reflect that, and they should be punished as if it was an act of terrorism.
So I agree. When right-wingers do these attacks, race attacks, anti-Semitic attacks, you name it, we think it should be called an act of domestic terrorism because it is. So when Dylan Roof targets African Americans in a black church in South Carolina, he did it because they were African Americans and he wanted to start a race war. How is that not terrorism? That's a political agenda for a violent attack that killed people. Of course that's terrorism. So under the same exact logic, I don't see why this wouldn't be domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
I agree with Cuomo.
Yeah. Let's turn now to a less positive response. This is coming from Acting Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security Ken Cuccinelli, who had tweeted, eventually deleted it. You'll understand why. Tweeted, the attacker is the US citizen son of an illegal alien who got amnesty under the 1986 amnesty law for illegal immigrants. Apparently, American values did not take hold among this entire family, at least this one violent and apparently bigoted son. Because, I mean, if you can't use an attack like this to push some xenophobia against immigrants, I mean, what's the point of it after all?
And look, it's this attack and catching the perpetrator is relatively recent, so we don't know that much about him. But I don't know.
All the more reason not to tweet something like that,
exactly.
perhaps.
So I don't know why Cuccinelli is saying things that are not confirmed or even known to be true at all.
Except you do.
Yeah.
Because he's in the Trump administration and he's there because he believes things like this. And the tweet was deleted, but Cuccinelli wasn't deleted. He's still an incredibly powerful person inside of the US government who apparently responds in a knee-jerk emotional fashion to any attack and tries to spin it to his political agenda.
Yeah, so he's acting Deputy Homeland Security Secretary. By the way, everyone's acting in the Donald Trump administration in more ways than one, but he fires and replaces people so quickly they never get to finally actually take the role. I think Mick Mulvaney's still acting chief of staff after all this time. Anyway, so this guy has a very, very senior position, and instead of at the Department of Homeland Security, an attack that might be a domestic terror attack, and he's like, as the second person in charge of Homeland Security, should I bother gathering all the facts? Nah, let me just go randomly blame immigrants, even though I'm not really sure it was an immigrant at all, nor do I have any idea whether that was connected to the crime in any way, shape, or form. But at least it'll drive up hatred. Now, that's the final part, the irony. We just told you the number one problem here is this climate of hatred that has been fostered in this country. And what does Cuccinelli do after an attack based on hatred? He further stirs up hatred.
Yep.
So, hey, now let's go target immigrants. And round we go.
Yeah.
And this is the poison of the Trump administration.
Yeah, and I forget exactly who on Fox, but someone took a conversation about this and turned it into a conversation about how Christians are actually the most persecuted around the world. Because again, this is like, you gotta use it to your own advantage. And I guess it's inconvenient in some way for them, but they want to focus you on the mission of thinking that secretly, even in the wake of this, Christians are the ones who really have it the worst. It's just sick. Even Trump, I mean, not that it really matters, but when the attack happened, he waited like 4 or 5 hours to respond. He tweeted multiple times about the witch hunt against him before then. Definitely takes it super seriously though, even though it took him 5 hours to even care enough to tweet about it. The whole reaction is sick.
Trump has this weird like gauge of whether to react and how late to react, right? So Charlottesville took him forever to condemn it, right? And some of the synagogue attacks as well. But when Muslims were attacked in Canada, he never even bothered to respond. He's like, it's fine, okay? And so like he's just a monster of monsters. And if you want to deny it, I don't care. You're an irrational person. I have no interest in you. And then lastly, yeah, the Fox News thing. Jewish Americans were just attacked with a machete, okay? 2 of them are in critical condition. Why are you turning it to like, oh no, I'm the victim? No, Christians are the victim. By the way, Christians are in some cases. And then we should talk about it when those things happen and condemn it full force, all of us together, right? But no, Jews being attacked doesn't do as well on ratings. Let's turn it to like poor Christians, you're the victim, and so that does better, right? You guys like it? Okay, good ratings, everybody. Yeah. Okay, let's just divert people from the anti-Semitism. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.